Hearsay is obviously prohibited in courts of the law,
Sure.
in Muggle courts.
Look at these 3 words written larger than the rest, with a special pride never written before or since. Tall words proudly saying, "We the people."
Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Remedial Civics with the Lex Rex Institute. We've got an exciting program planned for you guys today, or at least I think we do. I think we're watching a movie.
We're watching Harry Potter. That is as far as I got in the outline.
Okay.
So I think it has something to do with some sort of trial.
Okay, I think this
Actually,
was...
yeah, that happened in 5th book?
This is the episode we planned because the new Harry Potter game was coming out, right?
Coming out, yeah. It came out on February 7th.
Uh-huh.
It's been a while since then. So, no, that makes sense. You're about on par with your profession, with going out with things that are new and fresh.
Yeah, law is notoriously
Yeah.
slow. I mean,
Yeah,
you file a
legal
lawsuit
system.
years later, you might get a ruling. So
Right.
yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that's
so-
appropriate. The
yeah.
brand new game,
Yeah.
Hogwarts Legacy. So in honor of Hogwarts Legacy, we're watching a clip from which Harry Potter movie?
I don't remember. I think the fourth one.
Fourth one. So that's the
signaled.
Goblet of Fire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I read all those books as a kid. I'm kind of your typical millennial
Yeah.
on that.
I'm not a kid anymore, though, so I don't remember.
I actually started rereading them recently, but
Okay.
it's been forever since I've seen the movies. I listen to them
Yeah.
in my car right now, the books. But
Yeah.
So okay, so clip from the fourth one.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and give it a listen. This is the pensieve scene. I remember this.
Professor?
Professor.
Oh, we're watching a wizard trial.
Igor
I see.
Karkaroff,
Yeah, makes
you
sense.
have been brought from Azkaban at your own request to present evidence to this council. Should your testimony prove consequential, council may be prepared to order your immediate
Pause it real
release.
quick. What council is this? Is this actually like a court of the law, or is this some kind of administrative council?
I think it's a court of law.
I feel like our producer is the most likely to know that.
Why doesn't she tell me, and then I will repeat it as though she had never said anything?
It's the Wizengamot, which is a semi-court of law.
A semi...
Okay.
It's the closest they have to a court of law.
Oh, okay.
Is this what convicts people of crimes? She's nodding her head. This is what convicts people of crimes in their world. So I guess Sirius Black would have gone through this at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a criminal trial for all intents and purposes
Yeah.
in the magic world. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Seems like there's a lot of prejudice against...
You mean with him in a cage?
Well, yeah, when you have them come up in a scary wrought
Yeah.
iron cage like that, and on record that they're currently in Azkaban, and oh well, let's see what weight's given to this guy's testimony.
Council may be prepared to order your immediate release. Until such time you remain in the eyes of the ministry a convicted Death Eater. Do you accept these terms?
I do, sir.
And what do you wish to present?
I have names, sir.
Wait, okay, so let me get this straight. He's going to provide evidence implicating somebody else
Yes.
of a crime in
Yes.
exchange for his own release.
Yes. Or shortened sentence, I think.
Okay, shortened sentence. Yeah, commutation of his sentence.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's going to produce a perverse interest here.
No, really? That can't be.
Generally, so you know, hearsay is obviously prohibited in courts of the law,
Sure.
in Muggle courts, American courts, English courts as well, because we have English common law here.
Right.
But we obviously prevent hearsay. One exception to hearsay is statements against interest, and against penal interest can be one of them. So if
Okay.
you said something, for instance, implicating like a co-conspirator in
Sure.
something, but by saying it, you also suggested that you yourself were a criminal.
Yeah.
That would be against your penal interest because you'd be more likely to go to jail because you said that thing.
Sure.
If it's against your interest to say something, we assume people are likely saying it because it's true.
Sure, okay.
Whereas if people are saying something that is directly concurrent with their interests, may or may not be true. They may just be saying it to get something good out of it. So
Okay.
this seems procedurally flawed from the get-go, but let's see what happens here.
Sure.
I have names, sir. There was a Rosia. Evan Rosia.
Rosier is dead.
Dead.
Yeah, he took a piece of me with him, though, didn't he?
Oh, but he could still be a Death
If
Eater.
that is all the witness has to offer.
No. There was Rockwood. He was a spy.
Augustus Rookwood of the Department of Mysteries.
Yeah, the same. He passed information to you know who from inside the ministry itself.
Very well. Council will deliberate. In the meantime, you will be returned to Azkaban.
That's all they want? Just he was a spy that passed information to Lord Voldemort from... That's a little vague.
Yeah. I'm getting.
And that's good. They're done with him? That's good evidence? They're just going to go on with that?
I'm getting the feeling we're supposed to get more of a witch trial, Inquisition feel than an actual like justified.
A witch trial?
That's not. No, I don't like puns. Don't do that. An Inquisition.
Yeah,
than
it's
an
pretty
actual-
clearly.
Yeah, legitimate. To be fair to the.
Obviously, he has no right to counsel. There's no lawyer here. But what I find odd is that there's nobody that's even cross-examining him. So, like I would assume if they actually want information on these wizards that are bad or Death Eaters or whatever, I would assume they would bring somebody in to ask him, okay, like how do you know that guy was passing information to Lord Voldemort?
Yeah.
Do you have any documentary evidence that can prove that? Where can we find evidence that would prove that? Who else knew about it? Who can we talk to about that?
Yeah.
But they just get his name and then I guess launch their own independent investigation without any information to go off of.
Yeah, that sounds more like a Soviet trial than a Inquisition trial.
Yeah, it suggests they're just going to pull him in front of them and then convict him without evidence too. So they're not actually concerned about the evidence, just the accusation. What I didn't know when we originally recorded this, because I hadn't gotten that far yet in my re-listen to in my car, was that Bartemius Crouch, the guy who's presiding over this, whatever you want to call it, trial, is actually the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. This is a terrible idea, and you can hopefully see why it would be a huge problem, because he ends up doing one of the greatest risks of mixing these kind of powers together. He ends up doing one duty at the expense of the other, in a way that destroys his impartiality in both. You see, as head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, his job is to enforce the law, and to do this, he has to investigate crime. He has to find out where all the dark wizards are, and find out what they know, and who's a dark wizard, who isn't, then bring them in so that they can get a trial. But then he also runs the trial. And the fact that he's done the other duty first ends up being directly at odds with him fairly and impartially looking at the evidence as a disinterested court of the law. Now, in this particular instance, his duty as a prosecutor ends up being directly at odds with the interest of fairly weighing the sorts of things that really ought to have sway in deciding whether or not he's going to commute Karkarov's sentence. And it's also the reason why people at this trial don't seem to delve too deeply into anything Karkarov has to say. They don't ask any follow-up questions. They don't do that because, well, they just don't need to. They can find the people that were accused and they can ask them directly, probably in a context where there aren't court reporters and there aren't rules about what can be asked and how it can be asked and whether or not you can, punch people after asking them questions or anything else that probably wouldn't be allowed in the court of the law. So he just leaves it for that process. Now, this whole scene ends up actually being a really good illustration of the importance of a doctrine called separation of powers, which I assume you've probably heard of before. It's a foundational doctrine in the U.S. Constitution, and it's actually something that exists in a less substantial form in the Muggle English Constitution as well. By keeping the courts, or the judicial power, separate and distinct from investigation, or the executive power, we prevent exactly the kinds of conflicts of interest and unjust bias that are on full display here. And I'm in the middle of the fourth book right now in my commute to work in the car. And everybody's complaining, it's like, there's this horrible anti-government reporter that publishes anti-government sentiment in the Daily Prophet every day. Really, there's one reporter in your world that publishes anything anti-government?
Yeah.
And of course, everybody despises her because all the people talking in that scene are government employees.
Sure.
And it's the whole Weasley family.
Yeah.
And it's, the Weasleys are so angry that their kids, Fred and George, want to start their own company in that book rather than going to work.
Really?
Yeah, they're furious. They want to start a joke shop instead of working for government like all the rest of the Weasleys. But that's probably not directly on point for this scene, but maybe we'll get into more than that later. So
You're really mad at that.
well, it's yeah, I mean, really, like that's kind of the role of the media, isn't it? To report on misdeeds of the government, hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Of course, Arthur Weasley despises accountability because Arthur Weasley is the most corrupt bureaucrat in the entire wizarding world. I mean, the very second, actually not the first book, I don't think.
It's the second book.
After his kids, so after Ron, Fred, and George pick up Harry from his house of the Dursleys, they specifically comment. They say, in his flying car that he made, because he's head of the Department of Muggle artifacts or something like that.
Muggle affairs.
Well, yeah, which is basically what they're supposed to do, is prevent wizards from tampering with Muggle stuff. Well, this guy owns a flying car, and the Weasley twins specifically comment that if Dad ever raided himself, he'd have to go to Azkaban.
Yeah.
I mean, that's totally outrageous. And then at the same time, Arthur Weasley comments. So Lucius Malfoy, who is another character in these books, he's Draco Malfoy's dad.
Yeah, I remember him.
He was accused of being a Death Eater and then acquitted after Voldemort had been after his demise. I don't know what you want to call it. He wasn't dead, but after his demise. Even though he was acquitted of this, Arthur is convinced that he was unjustly acquitted and now has a personal vendetta against him. And he comments to these kids at one point, 12-year-old kids, who, mind you, are classmates with Lucius Malfoy's son, comments, boy, I'd love to get him on something.
Yeah.
So naturally, I mean, later in that book, you see Lucius Malfoy is having to sell all of this memorabilia that he collects because, in the hands of a corrupt bureaucrat, it could suggest that he's sympathetic to Lord Voldemort.
Which is why he sells the diary.
Well, he doesn't sell the diary. He slips that into Ginny Weasley's.
Yeah, that's right.
Spoiler alert. Slips that into Ginny Weasley's cauldron.
Yeah.
I assume because he's like, look, I mean, I know that Arthur's already committing all these violations. He has a flying car, for Pete's sake.
Right.
Let's get him on something for once. But then, no, lo and behold, it turns out to be an evil, enchanted diary that then corrupts Ginny Weasley's mind. So, doesn't really go according to plan.
I mean, if he's getting rid of the diary, he knows that there's an enchantment on it already.
I think he just knows that it's like dark arts memorabilia.
Okay. Okay.
It's not entirely clear what he knows, but
Sure.
I would argue that he didn't know that.
Sure.
If
Okay.
he were my client.
Right.
Very well. Council will deliberate. In the meantime, you will be returned to Azkaban.
No! Wait, please, I have more! What about Snape? Severus Snape.
Okay, so you can see he pleads with them to give more names because he doesn't want to be returned to Azkaban, which, by the way, is a prison where all of the guards are a species of creature that deprives you of all joy.
Yeah.
So exactly the sort of place that you wouldn't want to be. Yeah, so you can see that he has a direct incentive to not go back to Azkaban, and that's the reason why he's giving further testimony. It's exactly the reason why this stuff's unreliable.
Right.
Yeah, Wizard Gitmo is where they're sending this guy.
Sure.
Only, a little bit worse.
The council is very much aware I've given evidence on this matter. Severus Snape was indeed a Death Eater, and prior to Lord Voldemort's
Okay, why is Dumbledore... By the way, Dumbledore has offered, we know, false evidence in the past. He admits that in Book 3.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, after the kids, spoiler alert, but after the kids help Sirius Black, or not, I guess not really help him out, but after the kids bring Sirius Black back to the school, and they're going to take him back to, or I guess administer the kiss on him and suck his soul out without any kind of judicial determination, by the way. It's just the Ministry of Magic sent out a directive saying you can now take this man's soul because he's been on the run long enough.
Okay.
Which would be totally illegal in the United States, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
You could say if he's presenting a clear and present danger, if somebody's threatened for their life, then they can administer this Dementor's kiss. But you could just to say a unilateral, he's bad enough that we can do it now.
Right.
If he was tried, it was certainly in absentia.
Right.
But anyway, they've said that they can do that. Dumbledore knows the guy is innocent, and the reason Dumbledore knows the guy is innocent and trusts these kids saying the guy is innocent, Dumbledore actually says this in the novel. He says, I presented evidence at Sirius Black's trial that he was Lily James Potter's promise keeper.
Okay.
But he wasn't Lily James' promise keeper, so any evidence Dumbledore could possibly have presented there would have been entirely fabricated.
You could just be, in fact, wrong, couldn't he?
Presumably it's testimony, right? He testified saying, I have immediate first-hand knowledge of the fact that this guy was the Potter's promise keeper. Or second-hand knowledge, which would have to be, to be admissible as hearsay, would have to be hearsay from the defendant.
Right.
So it'd have to be something that Sirius Black said. In which case, maybe Sirius Black lied to him and told him that, but we're never given any indication of that in the books.
Right.
So it's pretty clear that Dumbledore fabricated evidence, and the reason why he doesn't want to go to the Ministry of Magic now and tell them that Sirius Black is innocent is because he'd be guilty of perjury.
Right.
And he would rather Sirius Black remain on the run.
Okay. That's a little bit of a leap, but I'll go with it. That's fine.
Anyway, so this guy's not trustworthy is my only point. I don't understand why...
You say you liked these books?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Okay.
A lot of fun.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't understand why he's talking out of turn. I don't know why the judge acknowledges him. Yeah. He doesn't appear to be counsel for anybody here. He's certainly not a witness. Right. He's not sworn in. I don't know if any of this is on the record.
Yeah.
I mean, they should cut to a stenographer taking notes on because I don't think any of this should be on the record, but maybe it is.
Downfall turned spy for us at great personal risk. Today's no more a Death Eater than I am.
Faithful to the Dark Lord.
Silence! Unless the witness possesses any genuine name of consequence, this session
Those
is
were
now
genuine
concluded.
names.
Oh, no. Heard about one more.
What's that?
The name.
Yes?
I know for a fact this person took part in the capture. And by means of the Cruciator's curse, torture of the horror Frank Longbottom and his wife.
Name! Give me the wretched name!
Why does he have first-hand knowledge of that?
Crouch! Junior.
That's Doctor Who, right? Yeah, that's Doctor Who. Oh, that guy probably shouldn't have run forward like that and immediately implicated himself and shown that he was very clearly guilty of what there was previously absolutely no evidence to support. If he were my client, I would recommend not doing that.
Sure.
Get your filthy hands off me, you pathetic little man! Hello, Father.
Is this on the record?
That's a good question.
Like
I think it is. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in the pensive.
It's a fair. Is the pensive Dumbledore's memories, or
I
is
think
it?
so, yeah.
So that's not necessarily the court record.
Well, no, but you can easily.
Dumbledore would be like, "Here are the portions that were struck from the record, Harry. You should still consider them, even though a court of the law ruled that you shouldn't."
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, okay, sure. That's fine. Whatever.
I am extremely corrupt, Harry.
You are no son of mine.
Yeah, that lip licking thing doesn't help him too much. You know, before like exploding in anger at people because of the allegations they've made, he should have just sat there calmly and then consulted with an attorney and then said, "Look, these accusations have been made against me." And then the attorney would have asked, "What evidence is there of these allegations?" He would say, "An obviously deranged man inside of a cast iron cage said it so that he wouldn't be sent back to creatures that would sap all joy, and gave no evidence of it."
Right.
And then I would say, "Okay, there's no case against you.
Right.
Don't freak out and do a weird lip licking
Right.
thing."
Yeah. I feel like you just advise him to say that you're going to wait until you've taken advice from counsel before saying anything or screaming,
That's
jumping,
probably
or licking my lips.
It's probably the most important advice. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. It's very true. I guess, long story short, if you get an owl that has a letter with green writing on the front, says Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, throw it in the fire. Don't answer it. There is no worse way for you to lose your civil liberties than to go into the wizarding world. I mean, as I already mentioned, these people are tried and convicted on paltry evidence with totally incredible witnesses testifying against them, oftentimes without the most basic procedure or protections against evidence that would be totally inadmissible in any reasonable court of the law, and then sent off for the rest of their lives to places where creatures sap all of their joy. I mean, in the first, actually, I think that's the second book, because they think that Hagrid is the person, like the heir of Slytherin or whatever. He doesn't even have a hearing prior to being sent off to Azkaban.
Okay.
They just see the same problems cropped up again. We're going to cart him off to Azkaban because he had a giant spider once upon a time.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That's a good advice, I guess.
It's nothing in this constitutes legal advice. That's very important to clarify. Thank you. Please don't.
Even not going to the Wizarding World?
No, that's not legal
It's too
advice.
far of a limb?
Yeah,
It's
that's
too far of a limb?
I can't, without a personal client relationship, I can't give
Fair.
legal advice. So, but if it were me and I were to get the Hogwarts letter,
Right.
I would really want to reform their justice system, and I feel like the only way to do it is from within the wizarding world. But when one of my clients approached me, I would say, "Don't do it. Don't go there. It's not in your interest
Okay.
at all." Thanks for listening. Hopefully you learned something. I don't know how you could possibly have, but I hope you did anyway.
Have a good night, everyone.